Constitution. A constitution is essential to the proper and orderly working of very state. In the absence of the constitution, there will be anarchy, chaos, confusion, and disorder. Jelling says that a state without constitution would not be state, but a regime of anarchy ends every state. Whether democratic or otherwise, must process a constitution in modern representative democracy. The importance of the constitution is immense. Even the totalitarian state requires some balance of a constitution to avoid disorder and to ensure the efficiency of government. It does not matter whether the constitution is not the form of a document or the form of customs and conversation. What is required is a set of rules which would ensure legitimacy of the government. In the absence of the constitution, people could be harassed and exploited by dishonest and selfish politicians. Page number 4, forally. Modern importance of the constitution. Modern states are governed by constitutional government, a government which functions on the basis of the laws laid down by the constitution is known as constitutional government. Under this government, the people are not subject to the whims and fashions of the rules. It will be the government to law and not of man. A constitutional government is limited government. It seats defined limits the authority of the rules and the checks arbitrary action on their part. It avoids confusion and introduces dependence into administration. It checks the government from usurping in interfering what the rights of the people. It implements responsible based on a system of resistance. Thus, the significant the need for the constitution cannot be defined. It's established rule of law and orderly government as opposed to the rule of man and disorderly government because the governmental powers are clearly defined. It's a frame of reference as a result. It minimizes political controversies and confusions and ensure political stability and continuity in political institution. Rights are secured and greater participation of the people in the political process is also ensured by the most modern constitutions. Finally, constitution grants peaceful change through legal methods. 1.4 Historical development of the Indian Constitution. The Constitution of the Indian Republic is the product, not a political revolution, but of their research and deliberations of a body of enumerate representative of the people. This very fact makes a respect of to improve upon the executing system administration. This very fact makes a respect of the constitutional development indispensable for a proper understanding of the constitution. Governor of India Act 1858, Governor of ಭಾರತ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಕಾಯ್ದೆ 1858, ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷಲ್ಲಿ ಗವರ್ನಮೆಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಇಂಡಿಯಾ. The British Crown assumed sovereignty over India in 1858 and Parliament enacted the first statute for the governance of India under the direct rule of the British government. By this act, the power of Crown vary to be exercised by the Secretary of State for India, assisted by Council of 15 members. The Secretary of State, who was responsible to the British Parliament, governed in through the Governor General, assisted by Executive Council. Indian Council Act 1861. The Indian Council Act of 1861 introduced a grain of popular
eliminate as he provided that the Governor General Executive Council should include create additional non-official members. The Act transferred legislative business as legislative council, but this council was neither representative nor deliberate in any sense. Indian Council Act 1892. The Indian Council Act 1892 introduced to improvement, namely that the non-official members of the Indian Legislative Council were henceforth to be nominated by the Bengal Chamber of the Commerce of the Provincial Council were to be nominated by the creation local bodies such as undivided district boards, municipalities. The council were to have the power of discussing that annual statement of revenue and expenditure, the budget and of addressing questions to the executive, but the act rated the majority of the official members. Morley Minto reforms. Morley Minto reforms are Minto Marley. The first attempt of introducing a responsibility and popular element was made by Morley Minto reforms which were implemented by the Indian Council Act. 1909, the size of a provising legislative council was enlarged by including elected non-official members so that the member of the official majority had gone up any element of elections was also introduced in the legislative council at the center but of the official majority was mandated. The deliberative functions of the legislative councils were also increased by giving them the opportunity of influencing this policy of administration and on any matter of public interest expect creation sufficient subject such as a armed forces foreign affairs and the Indian states. The positive voice of the Act of 1909 was that it provided for the first time for spirit representation of Muslim community and the Muslim community Muslim League and thus sowed the seeds of spiritism. Indian Council Act 1919. The next landmark in the constitutional development of India is Montego Charles Chelmsford report which led to the enactment of Government of India Act 1919. The Indian National Congress became more active during the First World War. The Indian National Congress, Bharata Rashtriya Congress, became the ಮೊದಲನೇ ಮಹಾಯುದ್ಧ First World War. It started as a campaign for self-government in response to this popular demanded the British government made a declaration on August 20, 1917 that the policy of British government was that of increasing association of Indians in every branch of administration and the gradual development of self-governing institutions. The then Secretary of State for India, Montego, and the Governor General Chelmsford entrusted the task and gave a legal stamp to their recommendations as Government in India Act 1919. The main features of the system introduced by the Act were as follows. Diarchy in the provinces. Responsible government in the provinces was sought to be introduced for the administration of the province by resorting to device known as diarchy or dual government. The subject of administration were to be divided into categories central and provisional. The central subjects were those which were exclusively kept under the control of the center government. The provincial subject were subdivided into transferred and reserved subject. The transferred subject were to be administration by the governor with the head of the ministers responsible to legislative council. The reserved subjects were to be administration by the governor and his executive council without any responsibility to the legislature. B. Relaxation of central control over the provinces. Broadly speaking, subject of all India importance, we brought under the category of central wild matters, primarily relating to the administration of the provinces, were classified as provisional and thus made of variation of the subjects. This meet and relaxation of provinces central and control over the provinces not only in administrative but also its legislative and financial matters. The devolution of power out to the provinces should not be mistaken for a federal distribution of powers, but provinces got power by way of delegation from the center. C. The Indian legislature was made more responsive. The Indian legislature was made more responsible and for the first time bicameral it was to constitute of an upper house named the Council of State composed of 60 members of whom 34 were elected about 144 members of whom 104 were elected. But there were also creation shortcoming of the 1919 Act. Firstly, the structure still remained entirely centralized with the Governor General and Council as the keystone of the whole constitutional edifice. And it is through the Governor General and Council that the Secretary of State and ultimately Parliament discharged their responsibilities for peace, order, and good government of India. Secondly, the great distraction was reworking of diarchy in the provisional sphere. The governor come to dominate ministerial policy by means of overriding financial powers and control over the official block in the legislature. The main defect of the system from the Indians stopped was the control of force. Next, Government of Indian Act 1935. The failure of the Century Commissions and the Round Table Conference led the eliminate of the Government of India Act 1935, the main features of the governmental system praised by the Act of 1935 were as follows. Next, Federation and Provisional Autonomy. The Act of 1935 proceeded of federation talking the provinces and the India states as units but through the part relating to the federation never took effect. The part relating to provisional autonomy was given effect. The act divided the legislative powers between the provisional and central legislature and within it is defined sphere. The provinces were no longer delegates of the central government but very autonomous units and administration. Next, be hierarchy at the center. The executive authority of the center was vested the governor general whose functions were divided into the groups. The first one, the administration of defense, external affairs, and tribunal areas was to be made by Governor General in his discussion with the consulates appointed by him. They were not responsible to the legislative. Yes, sir. Hello. Hello. Yes, sir. Hello. The regard to matters other than above reserved subjects. The ministerly were responsible of legislature. The legislature, the central legislature was big cameral constitution of the Federal Assembly. At the Council of States, the legislative powers of both the central and provisional legislatures were subject to various limitations and neither could be said to have possessed the feature of a sovereign legislature. Distribution of legislative powers between the center and the provinces. The federal provinces of Government of India Act 1935 were in fact appealed as between the central government and the provinces at threefold divisions was made in the act. There was a federal legit over which federal legislature and exclusive powers of legislation. There was provisional list of matters where provisional legislature had exclusive. ಹೇಳಿ ಸರ್. ಹಲೋ, ಆಯ್ತಾ ಬಂದು. It matters over which the provisional legislature and exclusive jurisdiction. There was a concurrent list of matters over which both federal and provisional legislators and competence as Governor General was empowered the authorities, either the federal or the provisional legislature, in enact law with respect to any matter which was not enumerated in the legislative list. It should be pointed out that this act went other step forward in promoting the communal divide between the Muslims and non-Muslims communities. The act provided fair responsibility not only for the Muslim but also for the Europeans, India, and Christians, and those created a serious early in way of building up the main national unity. Indian Independence Act 1947. After the agreement on the Mountbatten, the British Parliament lost no time to drop the Indian Independence Act 1947. The main feature of the act were also first one, abolition of the sovereignty and responsibility of British Parliament. The Governor General of India and provisional governors remained substantially under the direct control of the Secretary of State until in Indian Independence Act 1947. But the Independence Act 1947 altered this from 5th August 1947. India case at BA defended the sovereignty of the British Crown over Indian states. Next to B, the crown was not longer the sources of authority so long India remained the defense of the British Crown. The government of India was created on the name of the Majesty, but under the Act 1947. Neither of the two dominions of Indian and Pakistan are derived its authorities from the British states. Sovereignty of the domestic legislature. Number 3. From the appointed day and until the constitutional assemblies of the two dominions were able to frame their new constitution and new legislature were constituted three under T was constitution assembly itself, which was to function also the central legislature of the dominions of which belonged. In other words, the constitution assembly was to have dual function in a constitution as well legislative. The first unit closed. Unit second, reorganization of the states and national international inauguration and zonal council. Unit second, first unit closed. Second unit, reorganization of the states and national integration and zone councils. So the objectives after going through the unity of should be will able to first one explain why there was a demand for the organization of states, analysis the basis of reorganization. Number 3, explain agreement for the against reorganization. Number 4, describe the meaning, problems, and solution of the national integration. 2.1 Introduction. Today, India has a union of 29 states, 29 ರಾಜ್ಯಗಳು and 7 union territories, 7 ಪ್ರಾದೇಶಿಕ ರಾಜ್ಯಗಳು. ಕೇಂದ್ರಾಡಳಿತ ಪ್ರದೇಶಗಳು 29 ರಾಜ್ಯಗಳು, 7 ಕೇಂದ್ರಾಡಳಿತ ಪ್ರದೇಶಗಳು. ದಿ ಫೆಡರಲ್ ಪಾಲಿಟಿ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ಬಿನ್ concurrence. A long period of the development has been constantly change. It was right since the British period that the reason were called provinces. Before 1773, we have had three presidents, namely the presidents of the Fort William in Bengal, the presidents of the first growth Madras, and the presidency of Bombay. The presidency Fort William being largest, and hence it was divided into Fort William in lower province in Bengal, and presidency of Agra, which was postponed, and instead of Agra, northwest provinces under late governor was set of the 1836. Based on this, three were six chief commissioner of provision which British Balochistan, Delhi, Armer, Marwara, Kurg, Andaman and Nicobar Island, and Pant Pipodia. After Indian preparation 1947, both the northwestern provinces and signed become part A. Pakistan will Punjab and Bengal very divided between these two countries. Balochistan was also given to Pakistan. Independent India, those comprised the mini government provinces Chennai, Mumbai, Bengal, the united provinces, Bihar, East Punjab, the central provinces, Assam and Orissa, and five chief commissioner provinces Delhi, Ajmer, Merwara, Pant, Pippalodia, and Andaman Nicobar Islands. ಕೇಳವ ಎಲ್ಲಿದೆ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಕಾಗಡ ಎಲ್ಲಿದ್ದೀನಿ ಅದು ಒಟ್ಟ ಸರಿ ಸರಿ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ ಒಂದು ಕಾಗಡ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ. After participation in India fused the problems of constitutional, the inauguration of the princely states and the framing of a constitution. One of the princely states assumed to India. The process of inauguration began. Smaller states were merged with neighboring provinces. Other way, consolidated as centrally administration areas. States of another classes because of their affinity were consolidated as new federal entities. This including Rajasthan, Saurashtra and Trivandrum, Cochin, Mysore, Hyderabad and separate classes in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Their integrity was spare states of the Indian Union. In 1950, when the new constitution come into existence, the units of the Indian Union thus found themselves classified into Part A, Part B, Part C, Part D states. Part A, Assam, Bihar, Mumbai, Madhya Pradesh, Chennai, Orissa, Punjab, the United Provinces, West Bengal. Part B, Hyderabad, Jammu and Kashmir, Madhya Pradesh, Mysore, Patiala and East Punjab States Union, Rajasthan, Saurashtra, Travancore, Cochin, Vindhya Pradesh, Part C, Ajmer, Bhopal, Bilsapur, Koch, Bihar, Kurg, Delhi, Himachal Pradesh, Kuch, Manipur, Tripura. Part D, the Andaman and Nicobar. Nation building and national inauguration look like integral parts of the same phenomenon. The term national inauguration requires it is understanding in a comparative sense or any attempts has been made to discuss of the subject of national inauguration of India in a broad theoretical frameworks. Next heading, demand for reorganization of states. The demand for the rewarding of the state boundaries in India is long-standing, dating back to the year 1903, when three Herbert Risley, Home Secretary in the central government, wrote to Bengal proposing the historic preparation of the provinces affected in 1905. The authors of the report on India constitutional reforms very well disappointed toward provisional reorganization for For the principal reason first the provisions is they extended bore and unaffected character. Second, these units were very small, smaller in size and more amenes in characters of business of government was to become simplified. And third, the linguistic provinces they lend themselves to the adoption of regional language for purpose of the transformation government in business which was it attract to public affairs. The persons not acquired English and those as board whereas Indian politics Mahatma Gandhi wanted that we units Congress party. Congress party is both. Mahatma Gandhi wanted the Congress party is organized on the legislative basis. According to Congress party, give effect to the legislative principle. The Nehru Report 1928 approach to report of the government, geographical and party economic, but two main consideration whiles and the legislative unit of area. Right. The Simon Commission's report was submitted in 1930 gave qualified support of the legislative provisions. The Congress party adopted the resolutions in 1927, 1937. In 1938, recreated the provisions of the same basis. In its selection approach of 1947 pledged. सब बताओ नहीं बता हाँ Mahatma Gandhi Congress party is not available of not is not the Congress party की in Mahatma Gandhi's को in how aware of constitutional remedies is not excluding
ಇವತ್ತು ಯಾವ ಪೀಡ್ ಇರೋದು ಇವತ್ತು ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಎಷ್ಟನೇ ಪೀಡ್ ಇರೋದು ನೋಡಿ ನನಗೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಪೀರಿಯಡ್ ಅಡ್ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಆಗ್ಬೇಕಲ್ಲ. ಹಾ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಒಟ್ಟು ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಇಯರ್ಗೆ ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಇಯರ್ ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಮೊದಲನೇ ಮಾಡ್ಬಿಡಿ. ನಾನು ಬಾಕಿ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊತೀನಿ. ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಇಯರ್ ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಇಯರ್ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಯೂನಿಟ್ ಪರ್ ಯೂನಿಟ್ ನೀವೇ ಮಾಡಿ.
ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಇಯರ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ
ಅವ್ರು ಇವತ್ತು ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು ಇವತ್ತು ಕರೆದೆ. ಇವತ್ತು ಅದ್ರಿಸಿ ಮಾಡಿಸ್ಬೇಕಾ? ಇವತ್ತು ಅದ್ರಿಸಿ ಮಾಡಿಸ್ಬೇಕು. ಕೊಡ್ತಾವ ಈಗ ಅಲ್ಲ ಮುಗಿಸ್ತಾ ಹಿಂದೆ ಸರಿ.
ಬೇಸ್ ಇಮೇಜ್ ತಗೊಳ್ಳೋದು ಬಿಡ್ತದೆ.
ಏನು ಮಾಡಿ ತಿಂಡಿ ಇವತ್ತು ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ತಗೊಂಡಿದ್ದೆ ಆನ್ಲೈನ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ. ಬಾ ಅದು ಇಡ್ಲಿ ತಿಂದ ಬಾ. ಸಾಕು.